Hey guys, Chris from Hockey Tutorial. Today, the video that you guys have been asking for, XF Pros versus the XFs. Top spec flagship skate from the brand new Tacks range from CCM versus the model just below. In the review where I looked at everything that's changed in the brand new XF Pros, and I also discussed everything that you as a player should know about these brand new skates, I mentioned that I actually personally went for the XFs over the XF Pros, and you guys were wondering why. I'm going to be covering that in this video. I'm going to run through the difference in spec between these two skates, difference in construction and materials, and then we're going to jump into the on-ice differences and why I opted for the XF over the XF Pros, which sounds really weird. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about how the new Tacks range of skates has changed versus the previous one, like in terms of the higher boot cut that's going to be featured on both of these skates, so essentially more volume around your instep, and also the tighter heel lock and slightly more open facing eyelets. All of that is covered in the XF Pro video. Now, of course, all of those changes are going to be applied to the higher spec Tacks skates from CCM, so bear that in mind. Now, starting at the base, working our way upwards, looking at the differences between these two skates. The XF Pros uses CCM's Step Black steel, which you guys know is that DLC coated steel. Numerous benefits that I'll throw up on screen. You guys are no strangers to DLC coated steel on this channel. When we look at the XF skates, these are using CCM's V steel, which doesn't have the DLC coating, but it's polished to a high degree, looks like a mirror finish, reduces drag on the ice. This is a good quality steel because it's step, but at the same time, it's not as good as what you get with the DLC coated step blade. Now, all in all, I would always recommend players go for DLC coated steel over non-DLC coated steel. It's better performing, it's not just a color difference, it makes a real difference on the ice. Now when we move up, of course, both of these two skates are using the XS holders that features the bigger dial that's easier to be able to remove the blades from the holders if you need to do that. I will mention that the XF skate is using all metal components inside the dial that removes the blade. Some of the lower price point skates from CCM are using plastics, which means that they're just not as durable, so if you're removing the blades a lot, you want it to be metal. Now when we move up into the quarter or the boot of both of these two skates, this is where we see the biggest difference between the constructions. Now they look very similar at a distance, they also feel incredibly similar on the ice, and I'll get into that later. But what we get on the XF Pros is CCM's brand new Force Composite quarter. Now, the Force Composite quarter package or boot is essentially a much more stiffer skate than what we would see with the XFs, or what we saw previously from CCM, or even if we VS them against like an FT6 Pro. This is a stiffer construction, but more importantly, it's a performance construction and what that essentially means, it sounds like a load of waffle, but the construction of the Force Composite essentially allows the boot to be able to maintain its shape, its performance, it's kind of like, I guess you could say its stiffness, and also has better impact durability than what we saw from previous generations of CCM skates in terms of the quarter package. Now, that part isn't waffle. This is a new material that CCM have used to construct these skates, a new form of composite material. But so far, we've only had the skates for a few months, but definitely no signs of them breaking down prematurely, which is always good. Now when we move over onto the XF, this doesn't feature Force Composite, this features RMF Composite. Now that's not some weird low budget janky construction of a skate because it's a model below the top spec skate and they're trying to upsell you to this one. RMF Composite is what we saw in the CCM FT6 Pros. Now you guys know that those skates were phenomenal, and they're skates that we still use today. There's absolutely nothing wrong with those skates. They're phenomenal and they have lasted more than a season, which is always great. So the RFM Composite is definitely something that's tried and tested by CCM because we saw it on their elite level skates from the previous season. This, as a second price point skate, is probably, do you know what, I'm actually gonna say, in terms of what I have in the studio right now, this is the best second price point skate I've seen from any manufacturer ever, because the differences between this and this are minuscule, but there is a price difference of a couple of £100 or a couple of $100 depending on where you're looking. That does warrant the difference for you to actually stop and consider, maybe this is a better buy for me rather than spending the extra on these. But the RFM Composite in terms of its stiffness comes in at 190 on CCM's stiffness index, which I know a lot of players don't really like, but it just allows me to give a numerical figure to the stiffness. So these are sat at 190, but being honest, the FT6 Pros, North American edition, let's not get into that whole debate about the FT6 Pros, North American versus the Europeans, but the North American FT6 Pros are rated at 195. These are rated at 190. Personally, between me and also Tommy, we cannot feel the difference on the ice. 5 on the stiffness index means nothing. So essentially, you're getting a skate that is easily comparable to the FT6 Pros from North America. In my opinion, much better, but of course, a different skate because of the higher instep, the more volume in the forefoot area, etc. But if you're looking at it from a tech perspective, better skate. Now, the stiffness index on the XF Pros is 215, which is the same everywhere. No more North America, European skates, that's not a thing anymore. But the stiffness index on these is slightly greater than on these. But me personally, putting these two skates on the ice, I can't feel the difference. And neither can Tommy. I think that where you would feel the difference is if you're on the ice more than 4 times a week and you've been using the same pair of skates for 4 to 5 months, that's where I believe you would start to see the breakdown of these skates perhaps much sooner than what you would get with the Force Composite and the stiffer construction of the XF Pros. Now, that's just the way I approach the situation. There's a lot of factors that come into that, like how you skate, how you perform, what your build is, because that will also break down a skate quicker. If you are a massive, heavy, big built player, you're going to break down a skate much quicker than someone that's like me, who's 5'6" and some change and doesn't weigh too much. That always comes into play as well. But, you know, if you're average build and you're on the ice less than 4 times a week, I think these are completely adequate for your needs. And especially if you're the type of player that can have the same pair of skates for more than a season, more than a year, you don't need to be looking at elite level skates. You could drop down, save yourself some money, and still get a phenomenally performing skate. So 190 on the stiffness index, 215. Now, very quickly touching on the boot cut of these two skates. Now, this being the new Tacks range from CCM, slightly more step. Essentially, this area of the skate comes up higher or much taller than what we would see on previous generations of Tacks skates. So you have more volume in the forefoot, which is going to help to accommodate players perhaps coming over from other skate brands. Now, in addition to this, they've also changed the game-ready fit of these skates. They both have a little bit more lock around the heel, but as you get to the eyelets where they would have that game-ready fit, where the eyelets, if you're looking top down at the skate, really wrapped round straight out of the box, it's not as exaggerated. The top 2 eyelets of these skates kind of punch out a little bit more, just to give you a little bit better fit, better experience straight out of the box. Now, one thing I will mention about these skates is there's only one other brand, and it's not Bauer, and I'm not hating. There's only one other brand out there, being True, whose skates that I've been able to just throw on straight out of the box and skated. And these CCMs also have that. They've had that since the FT6 Pros. Straight out of the box, you can jump on the ice with them because of that game ready fit. Now, with the new Tacks range, it's an improved game ready fit. Game ready fit 2.0, which is even better to be able to just grab a pair of skates, throw them on a Sparks machine straight out of the box, jump on the ice with them, and off you go. Those are the main differences in terms of the actual construction of the boot itself. Now, when we move into the toe cap of both of these two skates, they've gone with a much lower profile toe cap, a much more sleek looking toe cap, and they've also adapted the connection points inside. A lot of players experienced in previous generations of CCM skates pressure points inside where the toe cap meets the body of the boot. CCM have really refined that connection process so it's completely seamless and smooth inside the boot itself. Now, what that's been able to do is not only get rid of those pressure points that some players experienced, but it's also been able to add a little bit more volume inside the toe cap area of the skate for kind of like the ends of your foot laterally, which is fantastic. Now, both of these skates feature the exact same toe caps. This is again something that we didn't see on previous generation Tacks skates, but no difference there. Now, moving up and looking at the tendons of both of these two skates, they're both using the exact same tendons. There's no difference there. If we're VSing them against previous generation tendons on Tacks skates, they're a little bit wider, which essentially provides more coverage at the back of your foot for more protection. The tendons also have a slightly more aggressive forward pitch when we look at these skates versus the previous generation of Tacks skates, but they're using the exact same tendon, which brings us nice and easily onto the tongues of both of these skates. Again, they're using the same tongue. Something I've noticed online is there's a lot of inaccurate information. Actually, stores online globally are advertising the tongue on the XF skates as a Tritech tongue, and it's not. It's the Adapt tongue. It's the exact same tongue that was featured on the FT6 Pros and the exact same tongue that we see on the XF Pros. Both of the tongues are the same. I don't know why this hasn't been adjusted, but hopefully some of these retail stores will see this video and change that. It's not a Tritech tongue, it's an Adapt tongue. Now again, both exactly the same. There's no differences in terms of the stiffness, the flex of the tongue. It's a tried and tested tongue that we saw in the FT6 Pros, the best tongue CCM has made, and it makes sense for it to be carried across. And the fact that it's on the XF Pros, one model below top spec, is insane. As you guys can see, there's a lot of similarities between these two skates. Now, moving on to the liners of both of these skates, this is where it gets interesting. A lot of stores online, globally once more, in North America and also in Europe, are advertising the liners as something different to what perhaps I think they are. I'm going to throw up 2 shots on the screen without labeling them at the same time, and I want you to tell me if the one on the left is the XF Pros, and the one on the right is the XFs. You tell me which order you think they come in, comment down below. I'll label the shots A and B. Tell me what you think A is, tell me what you think B is. Because if you look at both of them, they look indistinguishable. When we look at the padding around the top of the skates, around the neck of the skates, the comfort edging, comfort padding, whatever you want to refer to it as, the only thing I can spot is that on the XF Pros, the dimples look like they're a little bit deeper. And on the XFs, they look like the dimples are just a little bit more mild. But in terms of the touch, the feel, when you squeeze the liners inside, the appearance, the colors, the way that they feel on the ice, they feel completely identical to me. Now, the XF Pro liner was referred to in the review, if you guys remember that, as the Infinity liner. It has every feature that you would expect an elite level liner to have. The padding is damn near perfect. I can't think of a skate that has better padding than the XF Pros, to be completely honest, right now. The heel lock that you get, the ankle cushioning, how seamless the liner itself and the padding of the skate wraps around the outside neck of the skate to give you that nice soft comfort edge. So when you're turning aggressively on the ice, you don't feel any pressure at the top of your foot. Like, the liners are phenomenal. And when I move on to the XFs, it's the same thing. Now, to me, these liners look like they are both the Infinity liners. A lot of places advertise the XF liners as the Total Dry Plus liners with Polygene. Both of them have the Polygene stamp at the back of the heel, and they look identical and they feel identical to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and say both of these liners are the same. They also feature an extended bit of liner and foam that goes all the way through into the meeting point between the toe cap and the body of the boot, which makes that feel completely seamless from the inside. And of course, this is a feature that carries across to both of these skates. But aside from that, I can't tell the difference between these liners. The only thing I will say is that the game ready fit that you get on the XF Pros looks like it wraps over just a little bit more than what you get on the XFs, but this could just be these two particular skates. If I was to get another two pairs, that might be a bit different, but I will mention that if you guys are looking at stores, maybe check out the wrap, look at the skate from the top down to see how much it wraps over the foot, just straight out of the box. But that's pretty much the main differences that I can surmise based on the tech and materials that these skates have been constructed from. Now about the on-ice performance. These skates are phenomenal. We were filming with these the first time we got onto the ice with them. Tommy had the XF Pros on, I had the XFs. Normally you'd be thinking I need a minute to kind of get used to them because I don't skate in Tacks skates. I've always preferred jet speed over Tacks. These, I didn't even think about it. I did not even think about it once. The way that they felt on the ice was incredible. I couldn't really feel like these were a pair of skates that were brand new out of the box. It felt like a pair of skates that I had been used to skating in for months, which was a great sensation to have. So if you're coming away from Tacks skates from CCM, or you're coming away from a jet speed skate from CCM and you're thinking about getting these new Tacks skates, either of them, it's going to be seamless for you. You're not going to feel like there's an adjustment period. You're just going to feel like your ankle has more stability, more support, the skate is more responsive, and it's incredibly comfortable. And what I mean by more responsive is that I'm not thinking about what my feet are doing, they're just doing it when I need them to do it. And that's based on the skate wrapping around your foot and fitting you comfortably, securely, and having no negative space inside the skate. That's what I mean when I say responsive, not the skate's materials are doing this funky stuff that CCM claims that they'll do. If you have a great fitting skate and the correct stiffness in your skate, the skate really does feel like an extension of your foot. And I feel like CCM have achieved that to the best standard that they ever have with the new XF skates. I would, dare I say this, I would pick these skates, I would pick the XF skate over my custom ASV Pros all day long. I'd pick these over the FT6 Pros as well. These ones, these are just a great skate and I can't hype them enough because essentially what CCM have done is hit a home run. I can't really fault anything that they've done on these skates, and I really don't know where skate construction is going to go from here because these are next level. And if you're considering picking them up, like I said, the points I mentioned about your build and how much you're on the ice, if you're not on the ice more than 4 times a week, get these. If you're not heavy built and the sort of person that goes through a pair of skates quicker than a year, get these. Save your money on these. As great as they are, this is the best option from a second price point that I've seen as of when this video was filmed in 2024.